Hello class. Today we're going to talk about how to construct the X bar chart and R chart in Excel. I'm going to use the same example as we discussed last Thursday. So here's the spreadsheet shows our raw data. We have a total of 25 subgroups, and for each subgroup we have 4 samples as our data points. So first you need to identify the subset size, which is the number of samples in one subgroup. So therefore, in our case, this should be 4. And when you enter 4, the value for A2, B3, and B4 will fill automatically because I already built in this wlookup function for you. As you can see, the second tab in our spreadsheet is the table B, as recorded in the appendix in our textbook. So what this wlookup function works is that I want to look up this value, this 4, in this table, right? In this table. So 4 is in the first column. And then when I identify this row associated with 4, then I need to tell which column I want to return. So if we want to find the value of A2, I want to return the column 3, right? Because this is column 1, column 2, and column 3. So as you can see, the value that I look up is this 4, B1 in the first column. And then the table I'm looking at is the table B. And then this is the column that I want to return by this function. And for the last parameter, I set it to false because I want the exact match. And therefore, when you click enter, you can see the A2 value 0.729, right? Which is the same as you look up on the table. So this vlookup helps you to look up the values in table B instead of doing the manual lookup. So when you are using this template, you just need to identify this B1 cell. You do not need to change anything for the B2, B3, and B4 cell. These numbers will automatically fill in for you. Now we are going to proceed to compute the central lines and control limits for our X bar chart and R chart. So first, you need to compute the X bar, and this will be the average of the 4 samples that you have in one subgroup, right? So now you compute this X bar for each subgroup, and you can copy this function down for the following cells. And another way to do that is that you can put your cursor to the lower right corner, and when we have this solid cross, you can double click. So when you double click, it will fill out the formulas for you automatically. So now we have this X bar value, and next we're going to compute the R value. So the R value is the range equals to the largest number in your data set minus the smallest number in your data set. So now you use the function of max of this range, right? So we want to find the maximum number in this 4 among these 4 numbers, and then minus the minimum of these 4 numbers, right? Now you click OK, click enter, and then you can find the range. And now double click on it, you can fill in the formula for this whole column. So next, what we need to compute is the X double bar, which is the average of averages. So X double bar is the average of all these 25 X bars. And this actually every subgroup will share the same X double bar because this is a common value for all our subgroups. And therefore you can use average F to F. So when you enter in this way, it computes the average for all the numerical data points in the column F. So make sure that if you do not have any numerical values instead of your table, then you can use this function to compute the average for the whole column instead of specifying the range. Now click enter, and then you can find the X double bar. And of course, by double clicking on it, you can fill in this value automatically. And as you can see, this X double bar is a constant value, right, for all these 25 subgroups, because this will serve as our central line. And the next thing that we need to compute is the R bar value. So the R bar is the average of the 25 R values, right? And of course, similarly, we can use average J to J, right? So we want to find the average of this column J. And then you can fill in this formula for this column L, right? So this R bar serves as the central line for our R chart. So next we're going to talk about how to compute the upper control limits and lower control limits for our two charts. So first, the upper control limit for X bar, and we follow this formula, right? It equals to the X double bar plus the A2 value times the R bar value, right? So it equals to the X double bar, H7, plus the A2 value, B2, right? And then times R bar value, L7. And because this upper control limit is also a constant line in our X bar chart, so we want to fix this number for all the 25 subgroups. And therefore, we want to fix the address of these three parameters. You can put your cursor here for one cell, and then press F4 to place these two dollar signs, and therefore we can fix the address of this cell, right? And you do the same thing for the following two parameters, clicking F4, right, and fixing these three parameters. So now you click Enter, and you can find the upper control limits for X bar. So when you double click on it, you can fill in this formula. So it will actually be the same number for all 25 subgroups in this column G. And now for the lower control limit, it equals to this X double bar minus the A2 times the R bar, R bar here. And of course, you need to fix these addresses. So press F4 for each cell. And now we find the lower control limits, right? And you can fill in this lower control limits for all the 25 subgroups. And now similarly, we can find the upper control limit and lower control limit for the R bar. So for the upper control limit for the R chart, it equals to the B4 value times the R bar. And you need to fix these two addresses. And copy it for the range. And for the lower control limits, you use the R bar times the D3 value, which is 0, by looking up the table B. So as you can expect, our lower control limit for the range is 0, right? And you can copy it down. So now we have got all the numbers that we need. Now I'm going to show you how to construct the X bar chart and R chart in Excel. You go to the tab, the Insert tab, and then in the Chart section, you choose the one for the scatter points that is linked by line segments. Okay, so we choose this type. And as you can see, the Excel automatically detects the range of our table, right? And then it just plot everything that we have in this table. But we do not need this many data points for our X bar chart. So now you click on your data set, any data point, and then right click, select data. So you choose this select data. And now you need to deselect the columns that you do not need to be presented on the X bar chart. So we do not need this for individual values in each subgroup, but we need to keep the X bar value, the upper control limit for X bar, the X double bar as the central line, and the lower control limit of X bar. And you also need to deselect the values, the columns associated with range, right? So we only need to keep 4 columns. And then you click OK. So it draws these 4 columns for you, right? However, this does not look exactly as what we have on the textbook. So you can change the format for your data points. And for example, for the upper control limits, you click on this line, right? And then right click, format data series. So now you have a set of options. In the first tab, the field and line set options. For the line, I want it to be a dash line, right? So the dash tab should be the fourth one, right? This one, the dash type. And for the marker, I don't want there to be any marker on this line. I just want it to be a pure dash line, right? So I choose the marker options to be none. And now you can see that we have a dash line for our upper control limit, right? And you can do the same thing for your lower control limit. So in the line, you choose the dash type to be dash line and choose the marker options to be none, right? And now for our central line, for the X double bar, you do not want any marker here, right? You just want a solid line. So for the marker options, you choose none, right? And now we have our X bar chart. And you can edit the chart title as X bar chart, right? So this shows you the values of X bar, the averages in each subgroup, right, as our run chart, and also the upper control limit, the lower control limit, and the central lines for our X bar chart. To show how to construct the R chart. So you can put your cursor at any point within this table, right? And then you insert the chart type of this scatter chart with the line segments. So you click on it, and it also draws every column for you, right? So now you right click on it, select data. And now we want to keep only the columns that are associated with our R charts, right? So you can deselect it, like we do not need this X1 through X4. And you can also remove these data sets from your selection. So you can remove this X1, X2, X3, and X4. And also we do not need this 4 columns for the X bar chart, right? And you can remove this 4, and therefore it only leaves us with these 4 columns associated with the R values, right? So the R values are the range associated with each subgroup, and then the upper control limit for R, the lower control limit for R, and its R bar value as the central line. So now you click OK, and then it draws these 4 types of data for you, right? And similarly, we need to change the format. So for the upper control limits, you right click on it, format data series, and for your line and field options, you choose the line to be dash and then the marker to be none, right? And you did the same thing for the lower control limits, dash line, no marker. And then for your central line, you choose the marker to be none. Okay, so now this builds the R chart for you, and you can also edit the title R chart. So each data point, this one chart, this green dots shows the range for each subgroup, and then it also defines the upper control limits, lower control limits, and the central line for the R, for the range. So now let me move this R chart to the X bar chart. And now you can see here are our X bar chart and R chart. One thing to remember is that the horizontal line shows the index for our subgroup, right? So it starts with subgroup 1 to subgroup 25. If you want to limit your horizontal axis, then you can also click on the axis, right? And then right click format axis. So you have these options for the axis, and now you can define your minimum and maximum of the numbers. So the minimum could be 1, right? Because we start with 1, and then the maximum is 25 because we have 25 data points, right? And then the major units, you can take it as 5 or 1, and then we'll take 1 as the minor, right? So now can see that we have this X-bar chart starting from subgroup 1 to subgroup 25. And you can do the same thing for the R chart. So you set the minimum to be 1 and the maximum to be 25, right? And now it will looks more spread out along this x-axis, showing the subgroup numbers from 1 to 25.